Hello and welcome to another lesson of Picture Perfect Greek, and today we're talking about street signs you may see in Greece and how to read them. The whole thing is based on the idea that you know how to read the Greek alphabet, and I have 5 videos on this channel which teach you exactly that. So go to these videos first to make sure you can read the Greek letters. And now we apply what we have learned to reading street signs. So here is our first one. Have a look at this. This is a real street sign from Athens in Greece, and you can probably already recognize if you look at the middle one. Try to read it. The middle one of these 3 words is, of course, Athena, which is the Greek name for Athens. This is 7 kilometers away to the right. Then we have an relatively easy word, as the last one is a short word, 197 kilometers away. Which one is it? Try to say it yourself. It is Lamia. Lamia. Lamia is a city in central Greece, 200 kilometers away from Athens. And now we have on the top a part of Athens. You see Athens, the center of Athens is 7 kilometers away. This place that comes first here is only 4 kilometers away. We are on the north of Athens, and so this is closer to us than the center of Athens. And this place is called, try to read it yourself, Iraklio. Iraklio. And you remember that the H is actually an E, and we have a second E here, which is at the end of the word. The epsilon iota is also an E. So the whole thing is Iraklio. And how do you know that the stress is on Iraklio and not, for example, Iraklio or Iraklio? It is because you have the tone mark, and this is on the A, Iraklio. And the same applies to the other 2 words. Athena is Athena, not Athena. Athena is the name of a girl or the name of a goddess in ancient Greek, but Athena is the name of the city. So where you put the stress is really important for the meaning of the word. And Lamia again has the stress on the I, and so it is Lamia. Now let's have a look at the next one. The next one you will see when you go to the airport in Greece. This is a sign taken from the street that goes to the airport, and you can already see the airport sign beside a relatively long and difficult word. But then under it, on the bottom left, you have a word that you already know. Try to read that. The bottom left is, this is Lamia. Again, Lamia. But now try to read the one above Lamia where the airport sign is. The first word there is Markopulo. Markopulo. And you can see the R, right? You see the R looks like a P. So the Greek R is, what in English we would call a P. And the rest of the letters, the P, the pi, from mathematics in pulo, P, pulo, this looks like the pi in mathematics, right? The P. And the L at the end of the word, the second last letter, is a lambda, which looks like an A without the middle line. So that's a lambda, Markopulo, Markopulo. And this is the place where the airport was built. So this is why this is there. Then you have another word on the top right. This is Magula. Try to pronounce it correctly. Magula. Magula is a word, actually. It means cheeks. But I don't know if the place name is pronounced like this. You see, when it's all capitals, it's difficult because in all capitals you don't have tone marks. So we don't know actually where to put the tone. So let us now go to the next one. The next one is a very typical sign you will see everywhere in Greece on the streets. This is a normal street name. And the first word, try to read the word with 4 letters on top. And you see, this is orthos. And orthos is a word that you will never use in modern Greek except as part of the name of a street. It means street, but it is an old Greek word. Today nobody says orthos for street. Today we would say dromos for street. But this word is still in existence on street signs. So it means street on a street sign, and people still understand it, of course, but nobody would say this. You would not say, when you're asking for a street, if this is part of the name of the street, yes, but you would not say, what is this street called, for example, and then use orthos to make this question. You would say, how is this street dromos called, not orthos. So when you actively use it to mean street in a generic sense, you would say dromos, and the orthos is street only in this combination with a street name, and mostly on street signs. So this is now the street, and then comes the next word, which says what street it is. And this is, try to read it yourself. This is Dionysu. Dionysu. And you see again the multiple E's, right? We have the E in the second letter is an E, and we also have in the middle of the word the Y, the Y, which is also an E, Dionysu. And at the end, you remember we have the Omicron and Y, the 2 last letters, which together produce the sound U, Dionysu. And this U is a genitive, so it means it is a possessive form. This is the street of Dionysus, and Dionysus is the ancient Greek god. So it's the street named after Dionysus, the street of Dionysus, in Greek, orthos, Dionysu. Here's another sign. Now these are not so much official street signs, but there are other important signs you will see on Greek streets. This one, of course, you know what it means, because this is more or less international, the sign itself, right? The P that is crossed out means there is no parking here, you should not park here. But there are some words there which are good to know. Let's begin with the big red word right at the bottom of each one of these signs. What is the word at the bottom that begins with a gamma? Try to read it yourself, and try not only to read it, but to understand it, because actually this is an English word, it's not a Greek word. So what is this word? Garage. Garage. And of course this is a garage. So it is parking place. A garage, it's a parking place. So here we have a garage which is private, and because this is a private garage, you are not allowed to park there and block the access to this private garage, right? Now if you look at the top of each one of these signs, again all 3 signs are the same, right? If you look at the top, it has 2 words. Try to read these 2 words on the top. The first word is mi. And mi is here an abbreviation of min. Min means don't. Min means don't. And you see another E again, right? The eta, the ita is itself also an E. Min, don't do something. And what am I not supposed to do is the second word. So what is the second word? Try to read it. Parkarete. Parkarete, and you can recognize it, right? Parking. Don't park. Don't park. Here, this is a garage entrance. Don't park. Min parkarete. And parkarete is a plural. You should all not park. The Greeks also use, like in many other European languages, a polite form, which is the plural. So you all should not park here, or you, polite plural, should not park here. And then we have two more words around the P sign in this red circle. You see two more words. The bottom one, let's start again from the bottom because the word is easier. What is that last word at the bottom of the red circle? Try to read it yourself. Choros. Choros. And what does choros mean? Choros means space. Chora, by the way, is a similar word related. Chora is the country. And now again, this depends very much how you put the tone, because choros, if you put the tone on the last syllable, is the dance. And you see again, by moving the tone, by moving the stress from one syllable to the other, you completely change the meaning. Choros is the space. Choros is the dance. So we don't mean dancing here, we mean space. Choros. So this here there are no tones because these are capital letters, but we know that it will probably not mean dancing, right? Because it's about parking. So the choros now, again, has lots of interesting features. This word, if you look at it, first is the chi, which looks like an X, but in Greek is not an X because the X is a different letter. So this is a chi, choros. Then we have the two different O's, which are written differently. The omega comes first and the omicron comes second, but they are both pronounced exactly the same O. So this is a historical difference that has been lost now. We keep the writing of these different O's, but they are pronounced exactly the same O. So it's choros. There's no difference between the one and the other. Then we have this, what looks like an English P, but is really an R. We talked about it already. You also have it in the word garage. Down there, you have another P, which is really an R. And then the last one is the sigma, choros. So this is just an S. So you see lots of specific Greek letters in these words here, although many of these words are actually foreign words, like garage or parkarete. These are all foreign words that are not Greek words originally, but they are used in Greek as normal Greek words. And so one word is missing now, which is the longer word at the top of the red circle. So look at that. How would you read that one? Try to decipher it yourself. This is idiotikos, idiotikos. And you see you have an E, which is a iota this time. We have met other E's just now. For example, on the top left here you have me. This is another E, it's the eta. Now here you have a iota, idiotikos. And then after the second iota you have the omega, which is the same as in choros, it's just an O. The second letter in this word is a delta, the idiotikos. And at the end we have another omicron, another sigma, idiotikos choros. And idiotikos, you can guess, means private space. Don't park is what this says, min parkarete, don't park. Idiotikos choros, private space, garage. Here again we have a street sign, an official street sign, a government street sign that tells you where things are. And these are, again, interesting words and abbreviations. So let's look at the top. The top has two words. What does the first word say? Try to read that. The first is kendro. And you see the NT is interesting because together it's a D, but it's not always a D. It's sometimes a D and it's sometimes an NT sound. And here it's kendro because it means center. And like center is two syllables and between the N and the T is a syllable break, right? This is why these two NT, they don't fuse together to make a D, but they are separately pronounced as N and T. So it's kendro rather than kedro. Kedro, it's not kedro, it's kendro, right? Because between the N and the T is a syllable break. And you can guess this from English, right? Center. Okay, center is the first word. And this is the center of what? And then you read the second word. What is the second word? Polis. Polis. And polis is a genitive again. The word is poli, kendro, polis. Poli is the city, which you know if you have studied a little bit of ancient Greek history. You have the polis, Athens, right? Or the polis, Sparta. The polis in ancient Greek is the city-state. And this is where our word politics comes from, right? Because politics is the management of the polis. And so in this case, Kendropolis is the center of the city. And this is to our right side when we look at this sign. The center of the city. We don't know which city in this case, it just means center of the city, city center. It could be any city. This is why you may find such a sign in many different places, so it's good to be able to read that. And you see it also lacks a translation. Not all street signs are translated. Especially if you go to the more outside places in the countryside, you will find signs that are entirely in Greek and not translated. And so you should be able to read a few words like this. What happens in the next part of the sign, the one that points to the left? What does it say there? Try to read the first three letters. And you will already notice they look different in Greek and in English. And this is sometimes very inconsistent in Greek street signs. Normally, Greek street signs try to, in the English, they don't try to translate the meaning, they just give you the pronunciation of the Greek. But sometimes, like here, they do try to translate the meaning. So here, although the Greek says arch, the English doesn't say arch, it says ank or ans. And what is it? It means ancient. So in Greek, archeo or archaea means ancient. And this here is being translated, the first three letters, ancient. Ankh stands for ancient. And so ancient what? And now try to read the word afterwards, after that, the second word. Ancient Olympia, right? We have it in English, so this is not a big surprise. Olympia, but try to read the Greek because you see again a few interesting features, right? You see the MP, which is a B, or an MP, it depends. Olympia, Olympia. So in this case, it's more like an MB, right, together. How to pronounce this is a little fluid, right? It could go more into the direction of B or more into the direction of MP. Olympia would be okay with a pure B. Olympia would also be kind of understandable with an MP, but I think in this case it's Olympia, so it's an MB sound. It doesn't matter much. It's understandable in any case. And the other feature you see here is another E, right? We have an epsilon, which alone, without an O directly in front of it, is also an E. So it's again an E, exactly like the E at the end. So Olympia has two E's, Oli and Bia. And both E's are pronounced the same, although they're written differently. Now here we have another sign, and you already know one of these words. If you look at the top sign, the second word you already know, we just talked about it. Can you recognize it? It is choros. And we said choros when we had the parking sign. We saw idiotikos choros, private space. And here it's choros again, a space. And what space is it now? It is an archaeological space. Now try to read the Greek words. Archeologikos, archeologikos choros, archaeological site or archaeological space. Choros is a general word that can be used for all sorts of spaces or places or sites. Okay, and the second part of this sign, the bottom part, points into the same direction, and the first word is the same, archeologico. Now the sigma is missing because the first one is a masculine form, the space is a masculine word, while The second form, archeologiko, without the S, is a neutral form. So every noun in Greek, like also in German and in other languages, is gendered, right? They have masculine and feminine and neutral forms, and the endings are different depending on what it is. It's nothing you need to remember right now, but just in case you're wondering where the S went, the first one correctly does have an S because it is masculine. The second one does not have because it's neutral. And this normally agrees with the word that comes after it. And you see choros has an S, and therefore this archaeologica also gets an S. Archaeologikos, choros, because if the noun is masculine, then the adjective archaeological has also to be masculine. They agree in the gender. And the second one, what is the second word of the lower part of the sign? Museo, right? You see museo, museum, and the museo shows you another E, right? Epsilon iota is again an E, and also the U again, the omicron and epsilon at the beginning is an U. So museo means museum. And the museo, you see at the end, it doesn't have an S. This shows you that it's a neutral form, and therefore it gets a neutral adjective. Archaeological museum is an archeologico museo because the museo is a neutral form. Okay, here we have, and I'm using a little typo, right? No parging, but you understand, no parging. And now you see three other words that are very important. The first one is, try to read it. Now you have to remember the word we just saw, museum, right? It had an epsilon iota at the end, which was pronounced E, museo. And here we have the same at the beginning, these two letters, epsilon iota, isodos, isodos. So this is an E. It's not asodos or anything like that, it's isodos. Isodos, epsilon iota together is an E. If you're not sure, go to the 5th video on the alphabet, which talks about these letter combinations. Isodos. Isodos means entrance. And then we have the next word in the second line of the Greek, in the third line in total, is, try to read that, exodos. Exodos. Now often the xi will have a vertical line also to connect the three horizontal lines, but not always. Depending on the font, you can also write it like that. And it is still clear because there is no other letter to be confused with it. And exodos is the opposite. Exo means outside, iso means inside, going inside somewhere, and exo means outside. So you can use the word exo as itself a standalone word, which means outside. So exovrechi, for example, would mean outside, it's raining. So exodos. And you also recognize odos actually, right, at the end, which we just saw means street. So it's not exactly this, but you can perhaps use it as a kind of memory assist to say that this is the street going in and this is the street going out. So isodos means entrance and exodos means exit, right? And exit comes from there. Exit comes from exodos, right? This is the same word, exit and exo. So it's an entrance and an exit. And now it says an entrance and exit of what? And this is the last word here. Try to read this in Greek. And the second letter is not an X, right? Because the X, you see, is the second letter of the previous line. This is a Xi, which is an X sound. This here is a He, right? Ochimaton, ochimaton. Again, you see both O's, which are pronounced the same. You see another E, which is the eta. It's an E, just like isodos. So all these E's are pronounced exactly the same. So you have ochimaton. And ochimaton, ochima, is a vehicle. And ochimaton is of the vehicle. So this is again a genitive form. So it means entrance and exit of vehicles. So when you have this omega and ni at the end, like ochimaton, you see this is a genitive. So it tells you this is of something, entrance and exit of vehicles. And the same phenomenon you have here, right? This is two words, right? Something, something. And the second one is a genitive, which you recognize with the omega and ni at the end. So you're saying this is something, something of something, something. So you already have an idea of the structure of these two words, right? So what is the first word? Try to read it. This is the LFC. The LFC. And you see another trick here, not only an E, the, right, and then the but you also see the eta at the end, the LFC. And then after the lambda, you have the F, and the F is an epsilon, ypsilon, right? And again, this is a combination. Epsilon, ypsilon is an F, alpha, ypsilon is an AV, or AV, or AF. And this is always pronounced like that. Again, if you're unsure, go back to the alphabet 5th video about the alphabet where I talk about these letter combinations. So this is the LFC. And the LFC is a very old word again, like othos. It's a word that nobody would use in normal speech. Greek has a very long history, right? It's a 2,500-year-old language, even more, 3,000-year-old language. And in these 3,000 years, words come and go, but sometimes they stick around longer than they're actually used. So the spoken language develops faster, but the written language doesn't always follow, especially the official language. The government language is often codified in laws and in regulations, and these are written down, and often they don't change for many years, for many decades. And so words lose their meaning in everyday speech. They're not used anymore, but they are still used in these official signs and official legal language. And so this is what happens here. So the LFC is not a word that you would use today, but everybody understands it still because it's part of many legal constructs, many legal ways, and, you know, like here, street signs that use the word. And the LFC means going through. Via means through, and this lefcy means, you know, it's a word root that means to go somewhere. So going through. So this is a place where something goes through. Going through, the LFC of, which you know because you have the genitive form of the second word. Now, what is going through there? And now you have to read the second word. This is a very, very common word in Greece and in Greek street signs. Leophorion. Again, the two O's are exactly the same. Leophorion. The epsilon iota is an E. We saw this already. Leophorion. Going through of Leophorion. And what is a Leophorio? A Leophorio has, the word has two parts. Leo comes from Laos, which means population, people, citizens. And the second is phorion. Phero means to carry. Citizen carry, people carrier. And this is a bus. Leophorio is the word for a bus. So the LFC Leophorion means passing of buses, going through of buses. So don't park here, don't even stop here, right? It's forbidden to stop here because this is a place where buses go through. And you will find this often whenever you have small streets, but a bus needs to come through, because Greeks tend to park their cars everywhere, because in many cities there's a parking problem, there are not enough parking spaces. So people park their cars right and left of the street, often both right and left of the street. And then what remains is just not enough for the bus to go through. But buses have to go through because they have their schedules, they have to go through there. And so if they cannot go through, they will first start honking like crazy. And if you don't remove your car, it will be removed, you know, you see there, by a truck that comes and, you know, carries you away. So don't park there, because you will get into trouble if you see this sign. This is a place where buses need to go through. So this is all for today. These were some Greek signs. I hope that this was fun for you. You learned something, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.